Hate speech is on the rise, infiltrating our societies, fueled by conspiracy theories, prejudice, and ignorance, leading to discrimination, violence, and even killings. Hate speech affects us all. It starts with words. We must remember history, how hateful words have legitimized and triggered the worst of crimes. Today, hateful narratives in many forms still thrive, spread by influencers, demagogues, violent extremists of all kinds, and the ordinary person on the street. It is time
Just
to act.
Fernandez, may I suggest that you save it on your
It
desktop?
starts with
It will be
words
easier
and
to
respect
find
for human
afterwards.
rights. Freedom of expression is key, supported by universal values of tolerance, pluralism, equality, and non-discrimination. But ensuring respect for freedom of expression while addressing the roots of hatred is no simple task. Laws can be misused to repress opponents, silence journalists, and target human rights defenders. Again, it's all about words, how you use them, for which purpose. We are flooded by information and disinformation more than ever before. Social networks amplify communication at an unprecedented scale. They have a unique responsibility in addressing hate speech through transparency and working with policymakers and civil society. Education for all is the foundation. Learning to think critically about what we see and hear, create and share is essential, providing learners with media and information literacy skills to challenge those who promote hatred. Through dialogue, the free flow of information, and mutual understanding, we can build more inclusive and peaceful societies. No one is born to hate. Hate is learned, but it can be unlearned. It's all about words. We must educate about hate speech.
In our digital world, advances in technology have completely changed the way we access and share information. Social media has enabled us to shift from being passive receivers of information to becoming producers and editors of content, giving more people a voice. But there are also growing concerns around the use of social media as an instrumental platform to spread harmful content, such as hate speech and disinformation. This has had significant impacts on conflict dynamics and peace. For instance, in 2018, Facebook recognized that the platform was being misused in Myanmar to fuel division and incite offline violence against the Rohingya people. More recently, following the riots at the US Capitol building in 2021, Twitter and other companies suspended Donald Trump's account, arguing there'd be a risk of further incitement to violence. While it's difficult to establish that online hate speech or disinformation directly causes or correlates to offline violence, there is growing evidence that some violence has been instigated online. Every second, more than 10,000 posts are shared on social media. To moderate this huge amount of content, platforms are using a mix of automated and human interventions, and increasingly relying on artificial intelligence to detect hate speech and disinformation. But social media platforms admit they have limited capacity when it comes to training AI in minority languages, or having trained human moderators who speak these languages. What this means is that content moderation cannot be applied universally. And incitement to violence and disinformation can spread faster in developing and conflict-prone countries, where there are already political tensions. To address these challenges, we urgently need to find global solutions that can be adapted to local contexts. This is the aim of UNESCO's new project, Social Media for Peace. Launched in early 2021 and funded by the European Union's instrument contributing to stability and peace, the project is being piloted in 3 countries: Bosnia and Herzegovina, Indonesia, and Kenya. In each of these countries, UNESCO is investing in research to analyze how harmful content is circulating and consulting with communities that are most affected. We're also mapping how these issues are being addressed by local authorities and social media platforms through community guidelines and legal regulations. Bringing together multiple stakeholders, including tech companies, researchers, civil society organizations, media, and peace-building communities, the project will use the research findings to help define solutions that can effectively curb harmful online content at a local level. Lessons learned on the ground can help to drive stronger global solutions and promote the use of social media for peace in every country across the world.
Violent extremism is affecting all regions of the world. Yet it also generates waves of solidarity. But what next? How to build the defenses of peace in the minds of women and men? Education can help prevent violent extremism. Global citizenship education provides young people with the skills to dialogue and think critically. It helps young people challenge their assumptions, broaden their horizons, and engage meaningfully with others in their communities in order to build peaceful and sustainable societies. It involves parents, the family at large, local authorities, community leaders, the media. It's about learning to live together.
The legitimate limits to freedom of expression, the three-part test. Freedom of expression is a fundamental right, enshrined in Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states that everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. This right is also an enabling right, ensuring openness, transparency, and accountability in democratic societies. However, freedom of expression is not an absolute right and may be lawfully restricted in specific and limited conditions. Under international human rights law, and specifically Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, or ICCPR, the three-part test determines whether a restriction on freedom of expression is legitimate. Any restriction on freedom of expression must thus be provided for by law, pursue a legitimate aim, and be necessary for a legitimate purpose. Part 1. Restrictions must be provided for by law. A restriction to freedom of expression should be provided for by a prior existing law or binding norm, adopted by competent authorities, and which is formulated with sufficient precision to enable citizens to regulate their conduct accordingly. The law or norm must therefore be clear, publicly accessible, and easily understood by everyone. Otherwise, it would risk having a chilling effect on free speech by broadening the scope of permissible restrictions. Part 2. Restrictions must pursue a legitimate aim. Article 19, Paragraph 3 of the ICCPR details 4 essential grounds for restrictions. 1. Respect of the rights or reputations of others. 2. The protection of public health. 3. The protection of national security or of public order. And 4, the protection of morals. These grounds for restrictions must be narrowly framed in order to ensure compliance with international law provisions. Part 3. Restrictions must be necessary for the protection or promotion of a legitimate purpose. Restrictions should be effective, proportionate, and the least restrictive possible to achieve the legitimate end pursued. However, this criteria of necessity and proportionality is often the most complex according to international standards. Courts and other public authorities should thus consider the context in which the restriction is applied. For instance, a restriction in favor of national security might be justifiable in times of war, but not in times of peace. The three-part test sets a high standard to justify and clearly express the legitimacy of a restriction to the fundamental right to freedom of expression. In our rapidly changing digital environment, it is all the more important to reinforce the rule of law and the application of the three-part test to guarantee every citizen's right to freedom of expression and access to information. To engage and know more, visit our website and learn about UNESCO's work.
Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. Welcome back to the
Señoras y señores,
multi-stakeholder
excelencias,
forum on addressing hate
bienvenidos
speech through
a esta
education,
segunda jornada del Foro
organized by
Multilateral
UNESCO and the
para
Office of the
responder
United
a
Nations
los
Special
discursos de
Advisor
odio,
on the prevention of genocide.
sobre todo por intermedio de la
forum
educación,
precedes
organizado
a
por la
global
UNESCO y por la
conference of
Oficina de la
Ministers of
Asesora
Education,
Especial de las
which will
Naciones
take
Unidas
place
para
on
la
the
prevención del
26th of
genocidio.
October, and will
Este foro
give
precede a
rise
una
to a
conferencia mundial
series
del
of
Ministro de
policy
Educación que tendrá lugar el
recommendations
26
for
de
member
octubre y
states to
dará
follow
lugar
as they
a
tackle
una
the
serie de
problem of hate
recomendaciones de
speech
política de los Estados
through
miembros que van a
education.
seguir y que
The forum
tratan el
plays an
problema
indispensable
del
role in
discurso
this
del odio y
respect
cómo
and
abordarlo
serves
por
to
la
prepare the
educación.
ministers' discussions
El foro
and
desempeña
highlight
un papel
priorities and
indispensable a este
principles,
respecto y sirve para
notably in
preparar
terms
los
of
debates de los
promoting and upholding
ministros y
international
destacar
human rights
prioridades y
standards,
principios, sobre todo por lo que
including
tiene que ver con la
freedom of
promoción y la
expression.
defensa de las
On a
normas
technical note, some
internacionales de
viewers
derechos
have
humanos,
encountered
incluyendo la
difficulties
libertad de
logging into the
expresión.
platform